And good morning, YouTube. I hope you've got your coffee ready. Time for a bit of 11's ears chat and think and process. So my name is Nathan Dring. I'm working with the contact center panel to have a chat with you each week, 3 times a week soon we'll be up to, about how you can best thrive when you are working at home in this new environment. So we've already done one broadcast last week. If you haven't yet seen that, then you can check that out. That's on the YouTube playlist. Also, if you're looking at me thinking, who is this guy? There's a little bit of a bio on there as well. But I say, my name is Nathan Dring. I'm working with the contact center panel to bring you some new stuff, some new, maybe new stuff, just some things to help you really thrive as a home worker. Today's, we want to chat about, the title is this thing of how to keep your head. And my inspiration for this is the Rudyard Kipling poem, if you know it. It's called If, and it talks about it's like sagely advice. If you do this, if this happens, if this, all these if statements. And then at the end, it finishes with, and if all this, if you can keep your head, then yours is the world. This idea of if no matter what's going on, if you can keep your head, then there'll be success at the end of that. And that's what I want to chat to you a little bit today, is how can you, in these kind of bizarre, maybe interesting, maybe perhaps stressful times, how can you keep your head? And these are kind of stressful times. It's a tricky balance at the moment. I myself am finding it kind of interesting and difficult. I was trying to prep this and get my head into this space, and my 3-year-old daughter's nagging me, can we go to the shops and get Ollie? And once we've got past that's not the right thing for breakfast, then my 6-year-old son wants to go on the scooter, and I just thought, it's like they didn't get the memo. Daddy's trying to work, just go away. It can generate a bit of stress, and maybe you're not in environment, but there might be nothing. So sometimes people like a routine can cause a bit of stress. Just no fixed points in the day. For other people, a lack of control can cause stress. Just is happening around me and happening to me, but I feel stressed about it. So what can I do to try and kind of combat some of this stress stuff that I might be thinking about? So there's all kinds of things in this false environment. It might be worry about relatives or friends, or just kind of what the world looks like. It might be about your job, who knows? But we've got all sorts of things that can stress us out. And I want to have a bit of a chat around that today, and why we think it might be a good thing to consider our approach to that. Just kind of before we go into it much further, just to pause for a moment and explain what I mean in this context about stress. And there's a really simple model that talks about how humans like to be and operate. And there's 3 zones. If you imagine, if you happen to be writing or making notes, fab. If you imagine pen and paper, so grab your pen and paper, 3 circles, 3 concentric circles. The first one, right in the middle, is our comfort zone. And this is where we like to be. As human beings, we like to be in our comfort zone, and that's good. But we need to not spend all our time there. So leaders, if you've got people who are just sitting in their comfort zone, the risk is they get bored, they become a bit stagnant, they can even start to rot a little bit. So you've got to kind of, so it's good to go in there. But actually, the ideal is when you move from this comfort zone out to the next zone out, which is the stretch zone. And what happens is, in the stretch zone, it might feel a bit uncomfortable at first, but we learn stuff. We learn stuff in the stretch zone. So when we move between comfort and stretch and comfort and stretch, we actually learn stuff, and then we grow and develop. An example of this is little babies. So little babies, when they are tiny, their comfort zone is, I lie on my belly. That's great. And a stretch and a challenge then is can I roll over onto my back? That's my stretch. And then they get the hang of it. And then so actually, comfort, stretch, belly, back. Well, you know what? Suddenly rolling over is all in my comfort zone now. So what's the next thing that's a stretch? Well, the next thing that's stretch is sitting up. And then I get that. So suddenly now this is my comfort zone. And so I've got the hang of that. And so I go, okay, so if that's now, then standing up. And now standing up is my comfort zone. And then I get the hang of that, and then walking is and so what happens is our comfort zone grows as we learn stuff and develop, and as we move into stretch. But outside all of that, the third layer is our stress zone. And if we spend too long in stretch, too long with too many challenges, it can push us into stress, and we can spend time in stress, and that's no good either. So it's good to move between comfort and stretch, but stress isn't any good. Now, it might be that actually in this environment, You're right in your comfort zone, working from home. This is your gig. You're happy with this. Chatting to someone yesterday, they're totally cool with this. They love it. For other people, this might be a bit of a stretch. And some of the stuff we're going to work through in these YouTubes is how do we do the stretch stuff and make it kind of feel a bit more comfortable. And then you've got the stress zone. And so, just briefly, kind of, why is it important that we take on stress and figure out stress? Well, there are a couple of things for it. A few things actually. The first thing is this: that when we're stressed, our IQ decreases. So you might be a very bright spark, I don't know. But when we are stressed, our IQ decreases by up to about 15%. So fact is, as clever as you are, a stressed you is a dumber you. Sorry. But actually, what can happen with leaders is we can pass that stress on. As we worry, maybe is the way we communicate and be a bit more snappy, we can pass that stress. So then you end up with a stressed leader and stressed people, all of which are dumber now. So you can imagine the impact on dealing with customer services there when we're stressed. So not only does our IQ drop and we become a little bit dumber, but other things happen like we can't prioritize the same way. So everything's a knee jerk. So whatever comes into your inbox or whatever lands on your phone, bing, that we react to that, we respond to that, we just knee jerk. And that's a horrible way of trying to work. And it creates, guess what, more stress. The other thing as well is we start to, if people work a lot in their stress zone, they can actually start to resent the organization or resent their boss. And so then you've got this kind of underlying frustration. And when people are in that zone, they're just not going to work that well. They're not going to deliver great customer service. So that's not great either. Also, people lose focus when they're stressed. So you might be trying to resolve complicated issues. You might be trying to plan and forecast. You might be trying to work stuff out, and you'll lose focus if you're stressed. The other thing as well is you can't always handle emotion as well when you're stressed. You maybe can't process stuff out. Classic example is, people talk about a bad day at work, came home, kicked the cat. Well, what's that about? That's because we've not processed the emotions properly and we displace. We don't deal with it where it needs to be dealt with. We push it and it lands somewhere else. So that's another thing to consider as well. So all these things, guess what? And they end up, they spiral, they make things worse for us and usually then create more stress. So what are some things we can do to help combat, to avoid that? Just three things I want to talk about really quickly today. One of them, routine. Get some routine, get some fixed points. Talked about this last session, so jump on the YouTube playlist, find that if you need to refresh. Get some routine. That helps. That gives you a sense of control a little bit. Second thing, if again, as here, the sun is glorious in Leeds all the time. Get outside, stretch your legs. Endorphins help you feel good. That's a thing we touched on briefly last time. And then the third thing is there's a chemical, a hormone released in the body called oxytocin. And when women are giving birth, they get a big woof of oxytocin. And it's what helps them bond with their child. Some neighbours of ours recently, their dog had pups. And to start the process, they injected the dog with oxytocin. It's this great, powerful hormone that is all about bonding, and we feel it, and it is released in us when we feel connected. So a really simple thing is stay connected. Now, you can't go and find people and hug them. You can't do as many high fives maybe as you used to, but just through having regular conversations. And this isn't waiting for a boss to call you. This is making connections, having conversations, catching up with people, seeing if they're okay. Staying connected releases oxytocin because your body and your brain says, okay, I'm safe here. I'm part of this tribe. I'm part of this group. Really good thing there as well is that as we release oxytocin, it's a stress inhibitor. It can calm that stress in us. So sometimes just feeling a little bit more connected helps to inhibit stress. So they are a few tips and pointers. So get some routine, get some exercise, stay connected, and start to get a lid on some of this stress. It's not overnight like that, but it might start to just help us as we consider week after week more things to chat about so we can thrive. That's all I wanted to say today. I am back on Friday, and take care. Bye-bye.